Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, being a researcher, we all submit our research papers to different journals, and then there are two options that one is that our paper will be accepted, but the second is that our paper can be rejected for some reasons. And rejection is very common these days. There are several reasons. I will talk about that. But before that, this rejection that brings a lot of stress and some sort of psychological pressure and syndrome that how we will handle this rejection stress and how we'll get out of it. Being young researchers like MS student or a PhD student, even a postdoc, so at early stages of our career, rejection is quite tricky, and that brings a lot of pressure and a lot of demotivation. But as the time passes on and we get mature, senior, so we get the experience that how we can handle this in a better way. Rejection is not the end, it is just a start. And as I mentioned earlier, there could be several reasons why our paper has been rejected. And if we can understand all those factors and reasons beforehand, I think that we can avoid rejection, its pressure, and maybe the time wasted between different resubmissions and rejections and retractions, everything. So first of all, I want to talk about the reasons for rejection. There are several reasons, but nowadays one of the biggest reasons is the number of submissions to any research journal is increasing day by day. But at the same time, the journals, they have a limited space to publish a limited number of research papers. So in that case, that doesn't mean that if your paper is rejected, that doesn't mean that your research is not of good quality, not novel, but you can say that you have to compete with other papers. And probably the other papers which get through the process and got accepted, so they have a little bit higher quality than your research paper. So I would not say that rejection from one journal means that your research concept has been rejected, but it means that the journal where you want to publish it, probably they have a higher standard for quality of publication. So we need to figure it out that which kind of journal we want to submit our research. And then we need to understand that there are thousands of papers which are submitted every year. For example, in case of bioresource technology, they usually receive more than 10,000 research submissions per year. So we all know that it is impossible to publish all of the submitted papers. So ultimately, the journals, they have some criteria, and then they look for the best journals because they are also looking for good citations, good impact factor, so that they will be higher in rank and they must have good reputation. So this is, I think, that the biggest criterion for massive rejection these days. On the other hand, according to one study that in Environmental Science and Technology, which is one of the best journals in ACS, they say that the annual increase in submission is around 10%. But when we compare it with acceptance rate, so acceptance rate is around 10 to 25%. Maybe it may go up, it may go down, depending upon the reputation of the journal. For example, if you are talking about Nature, probably it will be 1 to 2%. And it's similarly with Science and Cell. But if you are talking about some open access journal, which is quite new, so probably they will have a very high rate of acceptance. But again, there is a compromise. The number of submissions, they are increasing every year because you see that recently China has taken over US in publication race. And the third world like China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and African countries, they are now also much into science, and they also have similar policies that you have to publish your research in journals for promotion, for faculty appointment, for research projects. So pressure is there, and in that pressure actually is bringing all that competition and higher rate of rejection. So even we say that acceptance rate is 25%, still 75% papers submitted to any journal, they will be rejected. It's a massive number. So, yeah, so the thing is, the point is that we need to understand that rejection is new normal, and we need to adjust with the new policies and new competition. So that could be one indication that we also need to improve the quality of our research so that we may pass all the barriers so that our paper will be accepted in good journal. The next thing is the wrong selection of your research journal could be one big reason. And if in case of desk rejection, for example, you submitted your paper to a journal, and maybe within 24 or 48 hours, you receive an email from that journal and regretting that your paper is not well in their scope, not according to their preference areas. So that means you have selected a wrong journal. This is one of the biggest reasons as well, that if you do not choose or select a good journal, a right journal, so there is a high likelihood that our paper will be rejected without any review. We call it like a desk rejection. I will talk about it later. And another thing is that we ignore the journal guidelines and preferences. In case of how to choose a suitable research journal, I had prepared 3 videos. Actually, they have the same message, that what is the criteria to select a suitable journal for our research paper. And there are so many things. For example, I gave an example of energy conversion and management journal. So by default, they prefer bioenergy research papers. But when it comes to lignocellulosic biomass or bioethanol, so they are hardly publishing like 10 to 12 research papers each year. That means like 1 paper per month. So this likelihood is very low. But when it comes to energy optimization or energy management, so the number is like 150, 200. So we need to figure it out that what are the preference areas of that journal. Similarly, if you look at the author's guidelines of bioresource technology, it clearly says that they would not prefer research papers in crop science and crop biology, anything like that. So if you submit a paper with the agriculture theme to bioresource technology, so definitely it will be rejected. At the same time, journals, they do have some guidelines, authors need to comply with that. And if you are not complying with all those guidelines, that means you are not bothering the instructions. So some journals which are at high quality and they receive a lot of research submissions, so probably they have to decline your research paper because they do not want to waste their time just telling you that you need to comply with. It is actually the responsibility of the authors that they need to comply with the guidelines, and if they don't, then automatically they will get rejected. So if we understand the reasons that why research papers are rejected and give some emphasis to understand that how we can handle all those concepts, I think that we can reduce the risk of rejection for our next research paper. Then comes rejection psychology. As I mentioned that whenever there is a rejection, so there is a stress. But there is a way that how we can handle it. So rejection is normal. I told you that there is publication competition is on rise. Less papers are accepted, like 10 to 25%, and 75% paper are rejected just because of several factors. I will talk about that. So once there is a rejection, so stress is like a likely outcome. But I think that with the passage of time, we can readjust, we can tune ourselves that how to avoid rejections and ultimately how to manage stress. The next thing is, sometimes when we receive rejections, especially the early stage researchers like MS students, PhD students, and even the early career faculty members. So they think that once their research has been rejected, that means that their research was not of that quality, and it was not impactful, it was not meaningful, and ultimately they get into some sort of imposter syndrome. That means that they do not trust their capabilities, qualities, and skills. I think it's wrong. I mentioned that rejection is due to several reasons. So we do not know that whether it is coming from quality or maybe some wrong choice of journal, or like we are into a journal which is very competitive. So there could be several reasons. That doesn't mean that our research design, our research concept is not okay. Because if my research has been rejected from one journal and then accepted and published in another journal, so how we can correlate it with the quality of the research concept? I still think that the journals, they have their own policy, and sometimes we do not be able to make our point clear to the editors and to the reviewers. So that could be reason that they reject it. So there is no reason to feel imposter syndrome. Rather, we need to be realistic, and we need to figure it out that why our research paper has been rejected. Next thing is there could be like 4 or 5 stages of rejection. For example, when we get the email and it says that our paper has been rejected, or like we are regret to inform you that your paper is not of that quality that we will accept it. So the first thing is we go into the phase of denial. We say that no, it is not possible, my research idea was superb. I think that editors and reviewers, they were like unable to understand it. So this is the first phase, denial phase. And some people, just because of that denial, they get angry, and in that anger they want to write an email to the editor, like harsh words that your team is not that capable, and I don't agree with you, blah blah blah. But I think that approach is not that good. And after anger, then a stage comes, we call it like depression. That means that demotivated, and we think that we were denied, we were rejected. So sense of rejection is always painful. And after depression, like between among all these stages, there is a time gap. So after depression, then comes a stage we call acceptance, and that is that we try to read the rejection letter or email, that what points or comments have been made by the editor or reviewer, and then we will we will look at those comments, we will figure it out that what happened, what went wrong, and then we come to the stage of acceptance. Like we look on our weaknesses and then try to solve those weaknesses for our next maybe resubmission or submission to another journal. So this is like a four phases, I think, that for rejection psychology, and we need to understand it. But the key message is that we do not be angry to their level that we will write an email to editor and have a fight, harsh words with the editor. Rather, I think that we need to look for the deficiencies in our work, or the mistakes we have done, and we need to try to work on those shortfalls, and we need to either resubmit to the same journal if the things are minor, otherwise we need to go for another research journal. There is a lot of space, and it is quite normal for us. Like in one case, my paper has been rejected from 4 journals straight away without any review, and with coming back with single comment that your work is like doesn't fall in the scope of our journal. So it happens. Out of this rejection, sometimes I saw that some of the researchers, they get deeply demotivated, and they make up their mind for certain good journals, that these journals, they do not prefer their work and they do not bother about the quality. Sometimes people correlated with the race, like people living in Asia, they are not like non-native countries, so they are not preferred in certain journals, and just because of being non-native English writers, so they are discriminated. But I think it is not true. Rather, and based on their own assumptions, they get so demotivated that they never publish their work in those good journals. I think this approach is totally wrong. Rather, we need to try to submit to that high quality journals, because in one case we will get good reviewer comments, and those comments will not only improve our current research, but sometimes the comments, they give us new directions to investigate, means new research papers. So why not to improve our quality of research? So in that case, we need to be very positive, and we do not need to be demotivated to that level that we will not consider those journals in future. The last thing is, the most important thing in this whole rejection process is the rejection email, because what content it carries. Even though they straightaway say that we regret to inform you that your paper will not be accepted in this journal, still they will have some clues, some points for future consideration that why they have made such a decision. And probably they will be talking about several factors or few, they will name it and why they think so. I will talk about in the next slide that what type of rejections we have, and basically why they come so. In case of types of rejection, to me there are three types of rejections. The first one is desk rejection. And desk rejection means when we submit our research paper, so it will go to the editor-in-chief, or say subject editor or associate editor, who is actually expert of that subject domain. So he will read the title of our research paper, probably read the abstract and conclusion, and sometimes they do some other work, and then they think that our research paper is not suitable for their journal, so they will not consider it for further, so they will straight away reject it. So we call it desk rejection, that our research paper is not going under review in that journal. That is called desk rejection. The three prominent reasons for desk rejection is, first thing is scope of the journal. I have talked about this point in my video where I talked about how to choose a suitable research journal, that why it is important to note down the scope of the journal. I gave you the example of bioresource technology, that they do not include crop-based biology in their journal. And there was another trend. Before 2010, they were majorly not publishing papers in the areas of biofuels like microalgae and lignocellulosic bioethanol. But later, from 2010 onward till 2018-19, they were publishing so many research papers in biofuels areas. But now, again, they have reconsidered their policy. So it happens. There could be some trends, and the journals do adapt to such trends. So the main reason why we get the desk rejection, is the scope of the journal. Again, if you are submitting your research paper to bioresource technology and it is talking about crop science, so they will not bother it. Straight away they will say that it is out of the scope of our journal, and they will straight away reject it. It is the responsibility of the authors to correlate their research paper with the scope of the journal. Because the journal has its audience, and they bother about their customers, their audience. And if the submitters, like if the researchers who submit a research paper to bioresource technology, they do not bother about the customers of bioresource technology, so why should they bother about the research papers? It doesn't matter. So they will straight away reject it. The second point is novelty. This term is relative, and we need to deeply understand it. And I think that as we get mature in our research process, from MS student to PhD to postdoc faculty members and doing a lot of research, so with the passage of time we learn that the process of novelty and continuous effort in doing research, so that brings so many brand new questions and directions to our research, and ultimately we improve the level of novelty. In any case, I think that whenever we prepare a manuscript, we try to write down the novelty statement, probably in the cover letter. So just to tell ourselves and to the editor that why we think that our work is worth publishing in your journal, like short novelty statement, what is new in our research. I read in Environmental Science and Technology editorials and ACS Nano, probably what they do, that the editors, when they get a research paper, so they search the same keywords in Google, in ISI Web of Science, and in their own database like ACS database, and then they try to find out that how many papers are being published on the same topic, and the numbers and how close they are. So then they try to figure it out that whether our work is novel or it's just same. Giving you one example that, for example, if we are working on wastewater quality, and we first investigated urban wastewater quality in, say, Lahore, and then we moved to Faisalabad. So what is the reason? What is the point of doing the same work in a different location? Just the location is novelty, and the rest of our methods are same. I think that is not novel, that is just incremental, and if you try to publish such research in international journals, probably they will reject it. Because another thing is the background, the context of our research is local. Whether the international journals, they want to publish research that is of interest for international community. So unless we do not make a good correlation of our research with the international community, probably there is a high likelihood that our paper will be rejected. So we always need to try about this novelty concept. Even though we are working on a new problem, producing new data, but still the mechanism, things, why the processes are happening in that setting, we need to explain everything. And another thing is we need to make claims based on the data. We cannot make claims just in a verbal way that, okay, we think it's happening, so everybody should trust that it is happening. I don't think so. We need to prove it, that what we are saying, that can be proved by these experiments. So novelty is another thing. And again, when there is a lot of submission, so the journals, they are more excited to accept the excited research work, the research that is adding a lot of knowledge to the existing knowledge, and like creating new avenues of research and knowledge. The third thing is writing. Writing is like I will grade it at number 3. Because good journals, if they think that the research idea and data produced, presented is good, so they will allow you one time to improve your writing. But still, if it is a bad writing, a bad presentation of data, so probably they will not give you another chance. And again, if they will send your manuscript whose writing is not up to the mark, the quality is not up to the mark, so still there would be a bad impression among the reviewers. So even though they want to review your work, still they will be little bit biased, and there is a likelihood that they will give the comments. So I think that we need to understand these 3 points before we submit a research paper to any journal, that whether our research is suitable and fits well to the scope of the journal, whether our research is novel and up to the level of novelty of that journal. So for that, you can just see the last few issues of that journal, that what level of research they are publishing. The third thing is writing. There should be no compromise on writing your research paper. I had one video that how you can improve the language of your manuscript. So I think that if you work well, so you can save you a lot of time. Desk rejection is a bad thing, but still it is a good thing. Why? Because say you submit your paper today and probably you will get a response or a rejection say day after tomorrow. So within like 48 hours you got a decision and probably they highlighted why they rejected your paper, maybe out of the scope of the journal. It is still best to get such a fast desk rejection. Rather, if you submit your research paper and it passes through to the desk of the editor, and then reviewers point out the same things and they reject your paper. So in that process, probably it will take several months. And if you are a student who is like bound to publish few papers for the award of PhD degree, probably you will waste a lot of time. So I think that desk rejection is probably the bad thing, but still it has some positive aspects as well. The next thing is that your paper has been rejected after review, the editors think it has some substance and then they pass it to the reviewers, but the reviewers find some defects and probably it will be in experimental design, like the approach you wanted to solve the problem, and maybe your data interpretation, like the way you have acquired the data and the way you are interpreting it. Sometimes we have a lot of and enough good data, but we fail to correlate and to extract the right information that that can present the solution to our research problem. And the last thing is still the implications, like applications, you can say, the impact of our research, because the reviewers and the editors and the journal audience, like the readers, they really want to know that, okay, if say your research is good enough, but how its impact can be calculated, like how it can impact, say, environmental science and technology, say chemical engineering, say anything, the area in which you are working on. So you also need to properly highlight the implications or impact of your research, that once it is established, so how it can work for the betterment of the society for that particular research problem. So this is the second phase. So means your paper that passes the editorial desk and it goes to the reviewers, but the reviewers they find these defects and then they say that it is not possible to accept your research. And here comes another thing, that sometimes they think that you need to revise your research paper, so they will give you some comments. Even if they reject your research paper, they will give you comments that what are the weaknesses, so you need to improve those weaknesses. But then there are two options: reject or say resubmit. Like they call for major or minor revisions, so then you have to work on the revision. There is another category, that rejection even after revision. If I submit a research paper and I receive a revision, even major, so I think that 80% chances are there that it will be accepted in that journal. There are journals which have no compromise on their quality. So even if you submit a revision, they will not accept it, and there is a likelihood that they will reject your paper even after revision. And in that case, usually they say that the authors, they do not bother to answer the reviewer comments to comply with the guidelines, and still they are lacking the implications. And they can also raise the question about the language. There are few journals which say that 100% reviewer satisfaction is necessary or mandatory. For example, they send your paper to say 3 reviewers and they want all 3 reviewers to accept your research paper, even like I say with the revision, minor revision or major revision. Even if only 1 reviewer out of 3 does not accept your research and say that he is not agreeing with your justifications, and he rejects your research paper, so that means your paper will be rejected. But this pool of research journals, they belong to very high quality research papers. I'm talking about really the great journals, but still they teach a lot of lessons and they give us a lot of good advices to improve our research design and similar things for our future studies. Okay, rejection is there, but how to handle it? The first thing is, whenever there is a rejection, we will get an email from the editor, but there are a few suggestions that how and when you need to read that email. If that email appears on, say in the morning, like it appeared the last night, but when you came to the lab, you saw there is an email from the editor, maybe surely with a decision. So my advice is never read such email in the morning, because when we come to the lab in the morning or to the office in the morning, we come with energy, and if we read a rejection letter, probably it will affect the whole day. It can demotivate us. So I would not suggest you to read such email in the morning. Same way, don't read any such email in the evening when you are probably leaving your office, because again it will impact your night. Your sleep will be disturbed, you will be preoccupied, there would be stress. Similarly, never try to read such email on weekend, Friday, late Friday, and similarly not on Monday morning, because then it will impact you the life. Rather, if you see that email, so what will happen? So your brain will tell you and it will try to manage the things. There is a likelihood of rejection, okay? So if you give it time, so your brain will try to readjust with the ultimate response of rejection. So I would say that if you see the email in the morning, so do not open it, and then come to your laptop in the afternoon after maybe having lunch, and that time actually your brain will make you ready that there could be any response, and you will be probably half-hearted, be ready to accept anything. So that could be the one way, and in that case I think the damage will be less. Otherwise, so some people, especially the young researchers, they immediately open up the email and then they say, oh, my paper has been rejected, so demotivated, dismoved. So I think it's not okay. The next thing is, when you are ready to read that email and you think that now you can bear the loss, so get ready. Maybe you can drink a glass of water, deep breath, and then control your nerves that there could be any decision, and I think it will take few moments, more than like 1 to 2 minutes. Then read the journal message, even it says that rejection, or say you need to resubmit with the revisions, and then leave it. Do not go to the detailed comments of reviewers. Just get the journal message and leave it, and again give yourself some time. Some people say like 24 hours, some people say 1 week. But I think that 24 hours is quite enough, because meanwhile your brain will readjust everything, and your energies will be okay. You will be out of your demotivation mood, and now you can accommodate everything. So next time, again, read all the comments in detail. Read what they say. And even if you feel that the editors and the reviewers, they have not read your paper properly and they missed some key information before making the decision, I think that you do not need to be offended. Rather, read all the comments in detail and understand what they want to say. Every point you need to understand it, what the reviewers or the editors they wanted to say to you. And once you understand all the information, I think the next thing could be that you need to discuss with your friend, because friends, and especially that friend who has some experience, your lab mate or any friend, and then work on the comments, try to justify, find the reasons, and then talk to your supervisor. Your supervisor is quite experienced, and probably he will give you the right advice that how you can handle this rejection. And even if you want to resubmit to the same journal, I think that leave the choice with your supervisor, because he is experienced and he can decide better that whether you need to stick to the same journal or you need to submit to another journal. And he knows that how much time it will take and how many chances for this appeal. So he knows better. Probably you need to trust his guidance. If you think that you need to resubmit or you want to submit to another journal, so in case of resubmission, so if you think that the comments are minor and they are addressable, so probably you need to work on all those comments and you need to re-ready your manuscript. You need to incorporate all the changes they suggested. You need to address all the questions they raised, and maybe some data, you may have some data, you didn't put it into the main manuscript, so now you can add to the supplementary information. So everything. If you think that your paper is can be resubmitted to the same journal and the comments are not that harsh, minor, so I think you need to go for that. And then again, when you will be arguing with your reviewers or editors, do not try to criticize. You can argue, but you need to argue with logics. You need to justify all the questions they have raised with proper literature review and giving the proper references, all the reasons, maybe supported with the data. So everything should be logical. And then if you think that resubmission is not a good option, then you need to choose another suitable journal. I told you that I have 3 videos, because this is really sensitive. If we look at the desk rejection rate, more than 75-80%, I think that we are making a big mistake while choosing a suitable journal for us. So we need to be very careful about that. And in that case, even if you are planning to submit to another journal, I would suggest you that you need to address all the reviewer comments. So because it will improve the quality of your research paper. We may agree, we may disagree with the reviewers, but still, if they have raised some valid questions, I think that it will definitely improve the quality of our manuscript and we can go for another journal. There is another suggestion here. I read somewhere, I don't know the reference, and it says that always try to submit your paper to a high quality journal. Although you know that it will be rejected or you will receive the comments, but those comments will actually help you to improve the quality of your research paper, and then you can submit to another journal little bit lower in rank to the previous journal. So that approach will actually give you a third party views about your research concept, about your writing, presentation of data, everything. So that will help you to actually be successful in the second step. But it is up to you that which way you want to go. The last thing is, sometimes it is good that if you mention in the cover letter that your paper has been rejected from that journal, and like you can list all the reviewer comments and your justifications, and you can say that I have incorporated all those in reviewer suggestions to my manuscript, and I think that it is a good way, because the next journal, they will believe you that first you openly admitted that you had a rejection and you incorporated all the changes, and now the quality of your research paper is already at a good level. So they will feel that there is a high likelihood that this paper will be accepted in that journal. So I think it could be a good approach. But still, it is up to you that whether you want to go for this approach or not. The last thing, which is still very important, that if you decide to submit your journal to submit your research paper to another journal, so you need to tailor the documents. For example, cover letter. Sometimes we think that the cover letter has been addressed to the previous journal, but the same cover letter has been used for submission to a new journal. For example, if you have submitted your you submitted your research paper previously to chemical engineering journal and you are using the same cover letter for your new submission to say bioresource technology. So how it will look like and how it will feel, because you submitted to bioresource technology but the cover letter still reads dear editor chemical engineering journal. So these minor things, they are actually not minor, because research is a careful process and the integrity of research process should be intact throughout. So such minor things, sometimes they cost a lot. So I would suggest you that whenever you decide to submit your previously rejected paper to any new journal, so you need to tailor all the documents, cover letters, title, blah blah blah, everything in accordance with the new journal, because it will give you a better idea and better chances for acceptance in the new journal. There are few references. I got this data from ACS Nano, Environmental Science and Technology, and then some nature carriers. So I have given all the references here. If you want to read all those articles, they are really, really good, and they made very good points to consider. And I think that if we bother all these points beforehand, probably we can reduce our rate of rejection to a lower level, and we will be more happy. We can reduce the stress and we can manage it well. Thank you very much. If you have any question, any suggestion, so please do not hesitate to comment anything so that we may improve our future videos. Now we will be on how to write down a research paper, and I will try to cover all the aspects of research paper writing and publication process. Thank you very much.